The little boy looked over at his mother. "Oh boy, Mommy, where's my piñata?" She put a blindfold on him. "I'll lead you, Tommy." The mother let the boy, Tommy, into the basement and spun him 3 times. She then gave him a baseball bat. Tommy wildly swung at the air, only stopping when he heard a crack and a plop of candy hitting the concrete. "I did it, Mommy! I did it! I did it! He took off his blindfold, pausing in horror as he saw a hideous crimson display in front of him. The removal van arrives late, so by the time I have everything moved into my new room, the sun has long since set. It has been a long day of driving, about 8 hours in the car traveling to our new home. I decide to sleep at an earlier hour than usual, as I will most likely have to wake up early tomorrow morning to help my parents with the unpacking. For tonight, my bed is an uncovered mattress on the floor, underneath a window that permits a few beams of soft moonlight into the room, bright enough to make out shapes, not bright enough to distinguish anything. In the darkness, the boxes containing my possessions transform into shadowed beings. One by the door, one at the foot of the bed, one in the far corner. I feel a few pangs of fear, but nothing more than usual. I never have been good at adjusting to new environments. After tossing and turning for an hour or so, I slip into unconsciousness. Later that night, I have an attack of sleep paralysis. I'm lying on my back, staring at the ceiling, and I cannot move. I notice a shadowed figure standing over me, and I'm immediately gripped by a gut-wrenching fear. The figure is indistinct, and I can pick out no features upon its body or face. It begins to murmur, an almost silent torrent of words that I cannot understand. My fear begins to lessen immediately as I realize this is simply a dream. This is an example of what I meant by not adjusting well. I often suffer from sleep paralysis when I sleep in new locations. After what must be an hour, I come to the realization that I can move again. The figure is gone, and I am freed from my night terrors. As I once again slip away into sleep, it occurs to me that I have never realized that I am in a moment of sleep paralysis until after I am awake. I dismiss the thought, as I am now exhausted and wish to catch at least a few hours shut-eye before the morning light. I awake the next morning to find myself facing the wall. Although the room is still dim, a few shafts of golden sunlight filter through the blinds, illuminating the space. The first thing that I think of is the sleep paralysis last night. It was strange that I knew I was dreaming, but I guess I'm just getting used to it. As I roll over, my eyes are drawn to a particular spot. The far corner is empty. Creatures, monsters, lurk deep in the stormy night. With their crystal claws, they stung and they sliced, and with their diamond teeth, they nipped and they bit. All sight unseen, for a human eye could not comprehend it. Whether it was cloth or armor, whether he had did nothing to stop them. The sound of crunching and packing of their heaped corpses followed him ceaselessly with every step. In the night, empty howls echoed in a cloudy, moonless sky. Their endless assault whipped like barbed flails, and their forms were as evanescent as spirits. There, a grizzled man sat in his decrepit, almost imaginary box. In it, he desperately held on to the final embers of mortal flame. He turned his wary, dry eyes to the blinding whiteness beyond its confines. The monsters. Their howls followed, but he could already feel them. Their bodies approached, but he could not see them. The gaze was bleak, devoid of emotion, devoid of resistance and determination, but they cringed in its painful, confounding light. His eyelids struggled, it pained to blink, and it ached to stay awake. He could take in no more but disgust and a warped sense of terror for all that he had suffered. His body was bruised and bitten, his skin, his fingers and toes flayed in hues of black and blue and purple, cracking in pain and eventually falling off as they fell numb. Then, the whiteness beyond the prison faded to black. His monsters followed him inside. I got home one night after a long day of just hanging out by myself when something traumatizing happened. It was pretty late at night and a shroud of darkness had filled the air. I was walking home alone. By the time I reached my house, my parents were asleep. As I opened the door to my bedroom, I felt something on my shoulders, as if something suspended from mid-air had just brushed by me. I turned around to see what was there, and that's when I saw it. My corpse, hanging from the ceiling with a belt around my neck. I was so frightened, yet too scared to scream. Then I heard a gun click. I turned around and saw me holding a gun up to my head and then pulling the trigger. Blood and brain matter went flying everywhere. After that, I heard some cutting noises, and I immediately turned to my right and saw me cutting my arms with a knife. I immediately started to have a panic attack, and I ran over to the corner where my bed was. I closed my eyes and told myself it's only my imagination. I was shaking and in tears from what I had just seen. Then, when I opened my eyes, everything stopped. There was no sign of my corpse anywhere. I then realized that I had had a hallucination. At least, I'm assuming it was a hallucination. A young girl is playing in her bedroom when she hears her mother call to her from the kitchen. So she runs downstairs to meet her mother. As she's running through the hallway, the door to the cupboard under the stairs opens, and a hand reaches out and pulls her in. It's her mother. She whispers to her child, "Don't go into the kitchen. I heard it too." The last man on earth sat in the corner of his room. There was a knock at his door. No, the man thought. There's no one out there. I merely imagined it, he told himself promptly. There had been a mysterious illness that had broken out among the world, causing all that came across it to succumb as soon as it got in their system. The man does not remember what the cause of the epidemic was. He had gone insane long ago. All he knew was there were no survivors. There was no one left. He was the last man standing. There was another knock at his bedroom door. The man was frightened. He knew whatever was out there was not right, but he needed to know who was at his door. The man, shaking and stiff, got up to look through the eye hole in the door. He slowly put his eye up to the hole, only to be met with 2 rows of knife-like teeth. Then an eye. It was inky black and full of malice. He could hear the being breathing heavily, excited by its find. The man jumped back, because now it didn't matter if he pretended he wasn't there, for the creature already knew of his presence. The man's door was busted down, and all he saw was a bright light, before escaping into a world of black. The man woke up in a white room, completely unharmed. He heard a voice. "Mr. Smith, I see, you have finally awoken." The man, confused and still shaking from whatever that creature was, turned to the voice and asked, "Where am I? Am I dreaming? Are there more survivors?" The man was horribly confused. Everyone had died. How is it possible to even be in the presence of another human being? The woman responded, "Mr. Smith, whatever are you talking about? You're in a hospital. You've been in a coma for 13 years. It's a miracle that you have now woken up." The man, surprised and feeling lost, said, "So, everyone's alright?" He quickly hopped out of bed and started crying out of joy, for it was all a horrible nightmare, because there was nothing to worry about anymore. Suddenly, the man woke up. He was back in his dilapidated room, not a scratch present, and he couldn't believe it. "Just a dream, huh?" said the man, voice cracking, and he started to sob. "Fine then." He stood up, walked to a corner, and sat down. The last man on earth sat in the corner of his room. There was a knock at his door. You sit in a room, your only company a gun on the floor next to you. The door is blocked off, but you know it won't last for long. You hear them, on the other side of the door, moaning and scraping. You look at the gun, and remember what you had to do. Who you had to kill to survive for this long. No, not who, what. Those things weren't your friends, weren't your family, wasn't the one you loved. They might have had their faces, but they didn't have their souls. Right? Was it worth it, you wonder? You're probably going to die soon anyway. There's probably an army at that door, and it won't hold forever. And even if it did, those things won't go away. You're stuck here until you starve to death. What a terrible and undignified way to die. And having those things come in and eat you is no better. Hell, it's probably worse. There's an easy way out though. The gun. The gun can provide a quick and clean death. No pain. No suffering. Just one shot. That's it. On the other hand, you can probably kill a few of those creatures. Maybe enough to make an escape and live another day. But is it worth it? Is it really worth running and fighting and killing to hang on to one day? To see one more sunset? Is your life really worth living when everyone you know and love, everyone who made your life worthwhile, is dead by your hand? Sure, you tell yourself that those weren't your loved ones. You tell yourself that to help you sleep at night, even though you know, deep down, that those were your loved ones you gunned down. You know, damn it, you know. So the question is, do you deserve to live after killing them? Do you even want to live? Well, here's a better question. If you die now, won't all those murders be in vain? Don't you owe it to them to live? Don't you owe it to them to make sure that their deaths weren't for naught? So what if you've done bad things? If you die, you can't atone for them now, can you? So the question still remains. Do you live or do you die? Life or death? Live or die? Live or die, or 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 live or... I don't know, you scream. The scratching at the door stops, as if the creatures on the other side are taken aback by the display of naked emotion. This only lasts for a second, as the creatures now try harder to get in. Meanwhile, you continue looking at the gun, and wonder if you should shoot them or yourself. It's a hard choice, but you have to make it. The door breaks down, those things come in, and you know you have to decide now. You pick up the gun, aim it, mutter a quick prayer, and fire.